I have, well, let's just say more cameras than I could comfortably fit in one camera bag. For my work, I primarily use Canon cameras. I started with the EOS film range in the 90s, specifically the EOS 3 and the EOS 5, both of which I still own and used just yesterday. In the early 2000s, I transitioned to DSLRs and more recently adopted Canon's mirrorless R range, so I'm quite well invested in the Canon ecosystem. Because of this reliance on Canon, I haven't had much opportunity to try products from other manufacturers. However, I've recently started investing in film cameras again and experimenting with different systems and brands, ranging from 110 film to medium format. Consequently, I now have a fair selection of various camera systems, with the exception of two prominent manufacturers, whose products I have neither used nor even had the chance to hold: Leica and Nikon. A couple of days ago, while at a camera shop to pick up my Mamiya 645, which was in the service department for a minor repair, I noticed a Leica M3 in one of the display cabinets. As I mentioned, I have never held any Leica camera before, but I've always been intrigued by their appeal, especially given what people are willing to pay for them. I do own a couple of rangefinder cameras, including decent Olympus, but I've never really taken to the rangefinder system. Putting that aside, I decided I wanted to try out the Leica, so I asked the shop assistant if I could see it. The assistant took the camera out, attached a vintage collapsible lens and handed it to me. It was one of the most beautiful cameras I've ever seen or held. Looking through the viewfinder and clicking the shutter release was truly stunning. The camera felt solid and heavy, the viewfinder was incredibly clear, and the focus area in the middle was so distinct it made it so much easier than my other rangefinders to focus. I spent some time wandering around the shop focusing on things and pressing and twisting the shutter and the small assortment of other buttons it had. It was quite mesmerising. I hadn't gone into the shop with the intention of buying, but I have a bit of a budget, so I asked the shop owner how much it cost, and he told me. After I'd finished laughing, I very carefully handed the camera back and set about leaving the shop before I got mesmerised by anything else. That's when I passed the counter and noticed this lying on it in the process of being priced. This is the Nikon F3, darling of the internet and one of Instagram's favourite film cameras. I pulled this hefty beast off the counter. It felt like a paving slab with a lens attached. The motor wind takes 8 AA batteries, and the camera itself seems to be made from something akin to pig iron. It is indeed a chunky camera, but the 60 seconds I spent trying out convinced me it could fill the non-existent hole in my camera collection. It was considerably cheaper than the Leica, so I handed over the necessary funds and me and the Nikon left the shop together. This brings me to today, where I need to load it with film and start taking pictures. I have a 50mm and 28mm lenses, along with a few ideas of what to photograph. So let's start here. South Queensferry, home of the Queensferry Crossing, the Forth Road Bridge and the Forth Rail Bridge. Particularly atmospheric day. Let's see what we can get here. So this is the back of an Italian restaurant. Looks like a place I can go. That's quite nice. If we can get that in the background. Where's the bridge? I think I might need for the bridge to come out of the fog a bit. As nice and as atmospheric as it looks in fog. It's getting to the point we can't see it now. So it's the next day, and I did come back as I was passing to see if I could get a shot of this homage to ironmongery that is the gate and the bridge, much sunnier day. And I brought a chair as well from my van because I wasn't getting the height over the brick wall. So we'll see how that turns out. What did you get a picture of?
There's a pretty cool girl that came off the wall.
Let me see. Oh, that's good. So back to the traffic. Central Edinburgh. And I love this hedge, this impenetrable hedge, which is just up the road from where I live. So I'm going to take a few images of this, and then I have a few errands to run in Edinburgh and surrounding areas today. So I'm going to finish off this roll of film while I do them. And then that'll be it. Then I'll have a look at the camera itself. And that's it for the first couple of rolls with this camera, so let's take a look at the camera itself now. So left to right, we have the film rewind lever, which also opens the back door to load and unload film. This also doubles as the accessory shoe, where you fit this clumsy looking hot shoe attachment thing, which I don't have, to attach a flash to it, for example. You'll notice there's no hot shoe attachment on the top of the eyepiece like just about every other 35mm SLR ever made. This control also houses the film speed dial and the exposure compensation. Then there's the viewfinder sans hot shoe. This is removable for waist level viewing if you've just arrived at 35mm and you miss your Rolleiflex, although this is no use for my failing eyesight. Talking of which, this is the HP or high viewpoint version of the camera, so called as it has a larger viewfinder eyepiece with less magnification. This allows you to hold it slightly further away from your eye, thus making it more convenient for people with glasses. Moving on, we have the shutter speed dial for speeds of 1/2000th of a second down to 8 seconds, bulb mode, and that weird T mode thing where the shutter release button opens up the shutter and then you have to change settings on the camera to get it to close. I've never worked out what this is for or what use it is, so if any of you know, please enlighten me in the comments. It also has auto aperture priority mode, where you choose the aperture and the camera chooses the appropriate shutter speed. And finally X mode for flash, which is 1/80th of a second. There's the shutter release button, of course. It also has a self-timer button, but that's pretty normal for any camera. This is the film advance lever, which is one of the things people rave about on this camera. It has some kind of magic ball bearing system which makes it just about the smoothest thing you can experience without jazz music being involved. There's also the power switch here, the frame counter, and the top plate is finished off with the multiple exposure lever, allowing to use the film advance lever to cock the shutter without actually moving the film itself for multiple exposures. On the front, we have a depth of field preview button and a mirror lock-up lever. Below this, we have the backup mechanical shutter release button, which allows you to release the shutter to take pictures when your batteries have sadly passed on from this mortal realm. It's a handy feature to get you out of trouble, but it is restricted to what the manual states is approximately 1/60th of a second. Note that the batteries, which are LR44s, are required for the shutter system to fully function at all its speeds, and obviously for the light meter to work at all. This button configuration also has an exposure lock button for when you have tricky exposure issues where you have a scene with a number of exposure options to consider, such as land and sky in the same scene. We finish off the front with a lens release button and a flash sync terminal. On the back of this particular camera anyway, we have this nonsense data back thing which can utilise LEDs to print the time and date straight onto your negative. I turned it off because it's just a really crap idea. There's also this lever here, which when utilised blocks the viewfinder with a red shutter to stop stray light entering when you're taking a light reading but don't have your eye in front of the eyepiece to stop the aforementioned stray light getting in. Looking through the viewfinder, we see the aperture displayed and the shutter speed. The optional motor wind offers another shutter release button and the option of single frame advance and 6 frames per second bankruptcy mode. So what's it like to use? It's great. I loved it. I haven't been far too tight to shell out the price of a second-hand car for a second-hand Leica. I found this to be an excellent camera in terms of user experience. It's myriad of functions. It feels rock solid. Everything moves smoothly. Everything works. It looks great. That's important. The viewfinder's clear and easy to focus with. The light meter worked well enough in auto mode when I used it, although I usually employ an external meter and set the exposure manually. The lens fitting takes about 1 million different Nikon lenses, and the ones I've got seem sharp enough, although the 28mm flares like a 1970s Coca-Cola advert with a hippie girl on a beach. But I kind of like the look, and I've checked the lens for haze and fungus, which can cause this excessive light blooming flare. And it's clean, so it must just be a quality of the lens itself. It's the kind of camera that makes me want to use it to take pictures, so what else could you ask for? And it's very affordable. So that's it. If you've got this far, you're part of an elite club of photo stalwarts who got to the end of any of my videos, so you should feel proud of yourself. Feel free to like or comment or subscribe and all that, and from rainy Edinburgh on the east coast of Scotland, have a nice day.